Now we'll come to the important part of applying this Marxism on a text. Now here you have to keep one thing in mind. Whenever you are applying, a theory, any theory on a particular text, it is not necessary that you will find all the fundamentals of a theory or principles or aspects of a theory in a particular text. You can find some, you cannot find some. So it is not necessary that you will only call a particular text, a film or anything else as Marxist if it has all the aspects of Marxism. That is not necessary. You can find one in one, another in another, third in third. So it can go in this way. Now, when we apply this text on hard times, as I said earlier, that we would take hard times as a text on which we will apply this theory. Hard times will also not have, all these aspects, but it is a work which deals with, a utilitarian kind of a society, and the storyline, the characters are highly capitalist in nature. I hope and again presume that you know the story of hard times, because if I start telling you also the story of whole hard times, it would make this lecture long one. I'll just tell you about the story in brief, that what this story is about, and I'll not go deep into the personal lives of the characters, rather their material lives, in order to understand the hard times from the Marxist lens. So what is Hard Times about? It's a story which is set in Coketown during in post-industrial England. We have a character named Gradgrind and another character named Bounderby. Both of them are the capitalists. Gradgrind is introduced to us being a retired merchant who has now joined politics and is a parliamentarian. So he belongs to the bourgeois class, to the ruling class, since he is now in the elite class. And Bounderby is also one of the friend and an owner of a factory, so he is also a capitalist. And we are told that this Gradgrind believes in rationalism or in facts. So he has got his own theory, and he would always talk about facts, and this is what capitalism teaches you. It teaches you about facts. It teaches you about profit. It makes you profit driven. There is no place for emotions in a capitalist society. And Gradgrind represents capitalist society in the best manner. So does Bounderby. We are told that Gradgrind has got two children, Louisa and Tom, and both of them are brought up by Gradgrind in his own school, wherein only facts are taught and there is no space for fantasy and imagination. And the result of this bringing up is that Tom, who he becomes a true capitalist product, self-interested hedonist, and Louisa on the other stand struggles with emotions because she cannot adapt herself in this capitalist kind of a system. And again, then we are told that this Gradgrind marries her daughter Louisa to Bounderby, who is his friend and is double the age. Now again, you will find that the identity of these people is with material things, is with material existence. And this is why Gradgrind cannot relate to the emotions of his daughter. Rather, he finds his friend, the capitalist friend Bounderby, as the best suit for her daughter, and he gets her married off to her. Now that is one class that Hard Times talks about. Now, as I said, I'll not go deep into the lives of these people, that how does the married life of Louisa with Bounderby shape up. In this lecture, I won't be dealing with that. But here is one class of a society, the bourgeois class. Then there is another class, which is represented in this novel by Stephen Blackpool. Stephen Blackpool is referred to as Hand. Now again, I said that in Marxism, we have alienation of the workers. And usually they would use hands for the workers. And even here in this novel, you will find Charles Dickens using hands for the workers. So these workers who are working with Bounderby in his factory are basically hands, and one of the hand is Stephen Blackpool. Stephen Blackpool is struggling with his domestic life. As I said earlier, he talks about the alienation and exploitation of the laborers. They are exploited, so they struggle in their lives. So Stephen Blackpool is an example of the proletariat class. Now, since he has a problem with his wife, Rachel, so he goes to Bounderby and asks him that I want to divorce my wife because my married life is not good. And Bonderby informs him that you cannot divorce your wife. You do not have a right to divorce. So even right to divorce lies with the upper class and with the ruling class. Proletariat class, who own nothing, even do not have a right over their lives. That's what Marxism talks about, alienation of the workers. Stephen Blackpool is fed up and leaves because his problems aren't solved. In the meantime, we are told that Slackbridge, who is again, one of the workers, he forms a trade union of the workers, wherein he thinks that he will, raise the voice of the workers. This would be kind of the emergent, in Raymond Williams' terms, where an emergent force arises. It would oppose the existing ideology. Now, as the Slackbridge forms this union of the laborers, so that their rights, they could be provided the rights, Stephen Blackpool decides not to join this trade union because he feels that it would add to his miseries, and particularly if the tension grows between the employer and the employee, it will make their lives miserable. Now, as he takes root out of this trade union, he is thrown away by his own hands, or by other hands in the factory, by other laborers in the factory. And he goes back to the Bonderby, and then Bonderby wants to use him, that is Stephen Blackpool. That is the exploitation of the laborers. He tells him that since you have been thrown out of this trade union and you have been very faithful to me, I'll let you be there in my company if you would become my spy. Unki jasusi kar mere samne. And Stephen Blackpool, since he's morally, right, he doesn't need all these material things. He says, no, I won't be doing this. Now, what happens? He's cast away also by Bonderby. Now, after this, Stephen Blackpool would decide to leave Coketown. Louisa comes to know about the Stephen Blackpool. She helps him with some money, and Tom also comes to his rescue, and he tells him that you should wait outside a particular bank for some days and help will come eventually. And Stephen Blackpool is an innocent man of a proletariat class, and again now Tom, who belongs to the bourgeois class, would be exploiting him, and you have that element of Marxism here, exploitation of labor. Stephen Blackpool goes there, sits outside the bank for quite some days, nobody comes there, and eventually he decides to leave. When he leaves, after he leaves, Tom would go and rob the bank. And once the bank is robbed, nobody knows who robbed the bank, but people think it could be Stephen Blackpool because he was the only person who was there outside the bank for a few days. And Stephen Blackpool is brought back as a criminal who has robbed the bank. He comes back in a bid to clear his name because he hadn't robbed the bank, but he eventually falls in a mining pit and dies there, and his death is very emotional. His wife is also with him when he dies. So that is the struggle, the relationship of the bourgeois class with the proletariat class, which is purely based on the principle of exploitation. And the bourgeois class only talks about profit. They have got no understanding, no need of, actually the lower class in the capitalist society. They are good as long as they are profitable. If they are not profitable, they better die in a gutter, as Stephen Blackpool did. Now, the other story, what happens to Louisa, later Tom is found and he also dies, and all these things, they continue in the story, but those parts are not important for me, particularly in this lecture. So that was the storyline of Hard Times. These were the elements of Marxism in this Hard Times. Hard Times presents to us this class system, the bourgeois and the proletariats, and the struggle of proletariats and the dominance of bourgeois, the alienation of the laborers, the exploitation of the laborers, and the function of the ideology. Grind owns a school, and through his school, he wants to maintain his power. So he runs his ideology in the school. He uses ISA, Althusser's ideological state apparatus, wherein school is one of the institutions. He owns the parliament. He becomes a member of parliament. He befriends a factoryman and marries his girl off to him. The marriage is never successful. This is how we look for the Marxist elements in a text. In this text, what we found Marxist was the class struggle, was the exploitation of the laborers, was the alienation of the laborers, was the lack of rights for the lower class people, and was the inability of lower class, of the proletariat class, to fight against the upper class, and was the moral corruptness of the upper class. That is about the application of Marxism on a text, and we did that on hard times. Now you can go back, sit back and think about other texts which could have such elements. You can look upon A Tale of Two Cities, you can look upon Death of a Salesman, you can look upon All My Sons, you can look upon Grapes of Wrath, you can look upon others, where you will find these economic troubles, these class struggles and other things. That is all we have at your academy for today. I hope that this lecture was helpful for you and you were able to understand how you can apply Marxism on a particular text. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to share, like, subscribe and comment at your academy.